Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. This is a very special episode of our Tuesday Treasure program where we go through some of the lesser seen objects in the museum's collection. It is Thursday. Due to the snow, we are bringing it to you on a slightly different day, but we are covering the same interesting topic of Valentines this evening. As always, my name is Nicole Carpenter. I am the Programs and Collections Director here at the Westport Museum for History and Culture. We are pleased, as always, to bring you this program free of charge. We do, as always, have a suggested donation of $5 if you are able. We understand that this is still a very difficult time, and we ask that you support the museum however you can, and these donations are extremely appreciated. If you are unable to donate at this time, we encourage you to support us on all of our social media by following and liking us. This is also one way that you can be notified of all of our programs in the future. On Facebook and Twitter, you can follow us at Westport History, and on Instagram at Westport History Museum. Any of our free programs are available on Facebook and on our YouTube channel at Westport History Museum for History and Culture if you weren't able to join us live. During our program tonight, we, of course, are going through Valentines, some of the cards, postcards, and iconography that we have for this holiday celebrating love. If you have any questions, anecdotes, comments that you would like to add during our program, please enter them in the comments box, and I will go through as many of those as I can at the end of our presentation tonight. Now, Valentine's is a very old holiday. Tonight, we are going to go through, as I mentioned, some of the iconography that we have in our collection having to do with this holiday devoted to love. And we are celebrating Valentine's not only for romantic love, but also for self-love, self-care, and also for love for friends and family. So this evening we have a selection of items that I am going to show you. The first of which I will hold up for you. This is actually not a Valentine's card, even though it very much looks like it. It is made of a red velvet. You can see there's also some metal detailing on the edge and kind of a leaf motif that is actually hinged around the card and continues onto the back. Excuse me, it's not a card. It looks like one, but this is actually a birthday registry. So on the inside, it is inscribed to Nigel Cholmondeley Jones, and this is Edward Owen Nigel Cholmondeley Jones. You'll see EO on that inside page there. Now, Mr. Cholmondeley Jones was a very well-known Westporter. He served on the Westport Town Committee as a member. He was also a jury selection committee chairman during the early half of the 20th century. During World War I, Nigel served as a captain, and he also served as an aide to Brigadier General A.W. Bjornstad, an American general. After the war, he was employed as an insurance and advertising executive in New York. Now, this registry, which contains signatures for some of the people who came to his birthday party, I'll show you the second page here. This was a handmade registry, and you can see all of the beautiful signatures in there. This is a handmade piece by a woman named Lucy Sargent for his birthday party. This item was donated to the museum by his wife, Henrietta, by Nigel's wife, Henrietta. And this was in celebration of his 90th birthday. It was held on March 11th in 1973. And on the inside, you may have noticed that there is an inscription that reads, Un, deux, trois cents, which is French at the very top there, which is French for dancing tea or a dancing party. And there is a newspaper coverage of this event because Nigel was such an influential member in Westport of the community, that the celebration was hosted at the VFW Post 399. And not only did he receive this signature book with all of the, not all of the attendees, but many of the attendees, there were over 300 people who attended this birthday celebration. And it is noted in this newspaper article from both parties, along with this signatory kind of register, private messages from then President Nixon, as well as Vice President Spiro Agnew and the Connecticut governor at the time, Thomas Maskill, all had personal messages to Nigel congratulating him on his birthday. And he was also being celebrated for his prominence in Westport. As I said, he's a very well-known person in town, so well-known and so highly regarded that he was given a key to the city, which we also hold in our collection that we may get to in a future broadcast. During the party, we have records that say that Nigel danced with over 40 women at this dancing party, even though he was turning 90 years old. And we know that there were many songs that were sung during the celebration, including one which was created and actually dedicated to Nigel that was written by A. Wilmot. I love that piece. It's a beautiful little piece, and it really celebrates, as I mentioned, this love from family and friends. The next group of images that I want to show you, or of objects rather, is from the collection of Venora Ellis. Many in Westport probably still remember Venora. She and her husband Leroy were one of the first Black couples to live in Westport. They raised their children here in Westport. Now, Venora grew up in a city in Mississippi. It's called Yazoo. She was born there in 1919, and she passed away in 2005 after living in Westport for over 50 years. She attended school at the Tougaloo College, and from 1938 to 42, while she was studying, she also worked in Westport as a mother's helper. She decided to move here permanently after she graduated in 1942, and 10 years later, she was married to her husband, Elroy Ellis. While she lived in Westport, she was a member of the PTA. She chaired the Experiment in International Living, and she also helped found the Inter-Community Camp, which brought children together from Westport, Weston, Norwalk, and Bridgeport. And in 2009, she was honored by Team Westport, the diversity league in town, as the Diversity Trailblazer Award recipient for her lifetime commitment to diversity and human rights advocacy in Westport. Now, Venora donated her collection, her family collection of over 200 postcards when she decided to move away from Westport later in her life. All of these postcards are addressed not to Venora, but to her mother, Irene P. Gooden, or Godden. And they are addressed to her home in North Carrollton, Mississippi. Now, many of these postcards are, all of them are addressed to Irene, but many of them address her as very fondly as girl or kid. And this is definitely earlier in her life. Most of these postcards, or all of them actually, are posted around the year 1915. The earliest postcard is from 1914, and the latest is from 1919. But they are all addressed to her during this time period. They also come from a variety of senders. Many of them do not include a full name because they are postcards from loved ones, very well-known associates of Irene's, but some of them are addressed, such as from cousin Louise Jones. Another is sent from Venora, probably the namesake for Irene's daughter. And then there's also some that are addressed to Hattie, Maddie, or a very mysterious Cicero. Um, I'm going to show you just a few of these cards tonight. The first is this postcard. This is actually an undated and unsigned postcard, but on the front it does say, "I wish for you," and it has a wonderful little poem alongside this iconography of the man in the heart, as well as these wishbones around the edges. And this poem reads, "I wish for you a little man with manners always beautiful, with clothing always spick and span, his pleasure to be dutiful. And if you're sharp, you will agree, the portrait is describing me, your Valentine." So it is a lovely little Valentine postcard. As you can see on the back, it does not have any inscription. This may have been a postcard that Irene was hoping to send to someone, or she may have picked up somewhere. Nevertheless, it is one of those postcards that has that really lovely front to it that was in Irene and now Venora and now the museum's collection. The second postcard that I'd like to show you tonight is also a card that features a poem, and it is called "Kissing," as you can see on the front. This postcard is sent from this mysterious Cicero that we said before. It is dated to December 12th of 1917. And on the back, it speaks about this Cicero skating on the pond and there being some poor weather in the wintertime. But on the front, it does, of course, have another poem. "Kissing" it is titled. "Sometimes I want to, and sometimes I don't. Sometimes I will, and sometimes I won't. But there's a time coming when I will be game, that is, if you are with me and you feel the same." Another lovely little Valentine poem. The third postcard is a little different. It has a green color scheme, which is usually not featured during the Valentine season, but it has such a lovely little couple on the front. And this has a very short note from an unnamed author on the back, and it just has a short little encouraging note for Irene. The last postcard that I have to show you is also a little bit unusual. It has these flowers on the front, as well as the word "darling" inscribed on it. Now, this card is interesting because on the back, it does not have a note of any kind, but it does have up at the top, it has the word "postcard" in various languages. It actually is in French, German, English, Italian, Hungarian, Norwegian, Dutch, Russian, and Spanish, as well as Czech. There is no note or anything like that, but there is a very short inscription to Irene, and it says, "From Jimmy W." We don't know exactly who Jimmy is. We do suspect that Jimmy is probably Irene's husband, John. We know that he served in World War I, and this card is from that time period. So it may have been a postcard that was sent while he was abroad, but that is unsure. That is our educated guess in who that inscription might be from. But it is a lovely little Valentine's card, and it would be lovely if we did find that it was from her husband, John, John Witherspoon, who is Venora's father, of course. Now, the last item that I would like to show you all tonight is a series of images. Now, these images are from various publications, actually. Two of them are from Life magazine, and we do have this book of illustrations in our collection, but it is a bit delicate, so I'm going to show you a couple of photos of them when I share my screen in just a moment. Now, these images date to the 1890s, or excuse me, to 1900. These are illustrations by Charles Dana Gibson, who is famous for creating the Gibson Girl. His first commercial sale of an illustration was to Life magazine in 1886, and that was when he was just 19. By the 1890s is when Gibson had created this famous Gibson Girl, who was meant to be the feminine ideal of the time, the visual embodiment of what writers of the period called the new woman. And he drew this ideal beauty from professional models, from family and friends, his wife, a dancer named Evelyn Nesbit, an actress, Camille Clifford, as well as other women that he knew. And this was a different way of portraying women, because many of his illustrations, and you'll see some tonight, that are very humorous. They also portray this Gibson girl as very intelligent, with wide-ranging interests, including dancing, also athletics, in various forms of occupation. And he shows them as very much the dominant figure against some of the men that he also shows in things like courtship and marriage. And these drawings are definitely a bit on the humorous side. He does become a political cartoonist later in his career, but the Gibson Girl is really what he's known for. Now, the book that the museum holds in our collection is a series of published drawings. This is the 5th book of published drawings in a series. Each book holds 84 drawings, and it was organized by Mrs. Mitchell and Miller and Charles Scribner's sons, who are all largely responsible for publishing his drawings. Now I'm going to show you the 3 images that relate to our Valentines this evening. All 3 of these images, as I mentioned before, excuse me 1 second as I get my my screen sharing set up. All of these images are from the year 1900. 2 of them are from Life magazine, and 1 of them is from a private collector who is named Russell Howard. And excuse me, sorry, I'm having a bit of trouble getting our images up here for you all. The 3rd image is owned by a man named Robert Howard Russell, excuse me, who was also a publisher of these images and actually was an author in his own right. So let me see if I can get these up for you. Here we are. So this is the first image. Let me show it to you in larger screen here. There we are. Now this image is titled The Invincible Army. You will see an army of women back here, and they are all portrayed in this ideal Gibson girl style, with this very voluminous hair, very iconic silhouette, and they're all behind this kind of Cupid figure. Now, this is the picture that is owned by Mr. Howard Russell. It is dated again from 1900, and it's a really a very humorous little picture talking about these women kind of charging into courtship and love. You can interpret this image as you will, but it does show this ideal beauty of the time. The second image that I'd like to show you is called Big Game. Now, this was published by Life magazine. It again shows this Gibson girl, this very iconic image, and it shows her being struck or about to be struck by Cupid's arrow. The third image is also published by Life magazine, And this is called a receipt for kisses. This shows, of course, the women here that are modeled after the Gibson girl. And in this image, there is a little recipe of a sort written at the bottom, which I will read to you. It says, "To one piece of dark piazza and a little moonlight, take for granted two people. Press in two strong ones a small, soft hand. Sift lightly 2 ounces of attraction, 1 of romance. Add a large measure of folly. Stir in a floating ruffle and 1 or 2 whispers. Dissolve half a dozen glances in a well of silence. Dust in a small quantity of hesitation. 1 ounce of resistance, 2 of yielding. Place the kisses on a flushed cheek or 2 lips. Flavor with a slight scream and set aside to cool. This will succeed in any climate if directions are carefully followed." And we can see in this image that not only the women are here listening to this Cupid cook up a love recipe, but also some men here in the back. So those images are really quite fun and interesting to see. All right, excellent. These images are very, very iconic of the 20th century. And you can actually see on one of Venora's postcards that the ideal or the Gibson man that Charles Dana Gibson was illustrating was still popular in the early 19 teens when that card is dated from. And there are other cards in our collection that also show very Gibson-esque women on these Valentine cards. If you have any questions about anything that we covered this evening, Valentine cards, the Gibson girl, or any of the other icons that are kind of reminiscent or very popular during this Valentine season, please do comment or ask your question on this video. As always, my staff and I watch these videos after they're posted to see if there are any new questions. So if you have anything after this video is posted, please don't hesitate to comment or ask your question. I want to thank you all so much for joining me this evening. Thank you for your patience with a little bit of our technology, and have a very wonderful and safe weekend, and have a wonderful Valentine's. Thank you so much.